My name is Milan West, and I'm 29 years old. For as long as I can remember, I was branded the ugly one by my own parents. The spare, the backup daughter, the one they never thought was worth investing in. 6 months ago, my sister Serena got married, or at least, that's when the world began orbiting her wedding. My parents dropped $85,000 like it was pocket change, $15,000 on a dress alone. When I casually mentioned that Daniel and I were also thinking about getting married, my mother stared at me like I just told a bad joke. She smiled, soft and cruel. "Honey, do you really think anyone would come?" she said. "Serena is the pretty one. We have to invest wisely." So I took my seat at her wedding in the back row. Seat 299 out of 300. I expected nothing to change that day. I expected to be invisible. Then the best man stood up, took the microphone, and everything I thought I knew about my flawless sister shattered in public. But before I tell you what happened when Marcus cleared his throat and looked out at the crowd, you need to understand how we got there. Growing up in the West household meant learning your rank early. Serena was the sun. I was whatever drifted around her light, barely noticed. My mother, Diane, had once chased beauty pageants in her 20s. She never won. She came close twice. She loved to remind us, but she poured every unfinished dream into Serena. Blonde hair, blue eyes, a face that made strangers pause. By 6 years old, Serena was parading across stages in sparkly dresses while judges applauded. Me? Brown hair, brown eyes, a face my mother once called pleasant enough. She'd smooth my hair and say, "You're attractive in your own way." While watching Serena practice her pageant wave in the mirror, I learned early how to disappear. While Serena collected trophies and crowns, I collected library cards. While my mother drove her to competitions every weekend, I walked myself to the library. When I made honor roll in 8th grade, no one showed up. They were at Serena's regional finals. "We'll celebrate later," my dad promised over the phone. They forgot. Years later, I found the family photo albums. 47 pages for Serena. Every pageant, every smile. 3 pages for me. One baby photo, one kindergarten picture. One blurry middle school graduation shot where half my face was cut off. I counted twice, hoping I'd missed something. I hadn't. 3 years ago, Serena brought Brandon Hayes into our lives. They met at a charity gala. Serena was there as an influencer, 500,000 followers watching her talk about self-care and lipstick shades. Brandon was there because his family funded the event. Old money, quiet wealth. When Serena brought him home for dinner, my mother nearly fainted. "A Hayes," she whispered, gripping my father's arm. From that night on, every conversation revolved around Brandon, his job, his family estate, his mother's wedding preferences. I sat there, invisible, while my parents planned Serena's future, like a military operation. I'd been dating Daniel for 2 years by then. He taught high school English, Shakespeare, Steinbeck, kids who barely listened. He made me laugh. He remembered my birthday. He never once made me feel like a consolation prize. When I introduced him to my parents, my mother's smile twitched. "A teacher," she said. "That's nice." Then she turned to my father. "Did Serena tell you? Brandon's taking her to the Hamptons." Daniel squeezed my hand under the table. That night, he asked me why I kept trying. I didn't have an answer. Brandon proposed on Serena's birthday, a rooftop in Manhattan, a hidden photographer, a diamond so big it needed its own zip code. The announcement came with a number burned into my brain, $85,000. I'd been engaged to Daniel for 3 months by then. He proposed quietly, in our apartment, with his grandmother's ring. I said yes before he finished. When I finally told my parents, my mother suggested a backyard ceremony. Then she said it, soft, polite, final. "We have to invest wisely. Serena's wedding could open doors." My father stared at his plate. His silence hurt more than her words. The engagement party was held at the Hayes estate. Daniel wasn't invited. "Family only," Serena said, not meeting my eyes. I drifted through the crowd like a ghost. That's when I noticed Tyler Hayes, Brandon's younger brother. He watched Serena with something sharp and hungry in his eyes. When their gazes met, something passed between them. Quick. Electric. I told myself I was imagining it. An older man with a camera introduced himself as Robert Hayes, Brandon's uncle. "Amazing what a lens can capture," he said lightly. "Even moments people think no one sees." I laughed then. I wouldn't later. That night, Daniel held me while I cried years of swallowed pain. I promised him this would be the last time. 3 months until the wedding, then we'd be done. The bridal shower came next. A boutique hotel. Influencers and perfect smiles. I arrived early, not as a guest, but as help. Setting tables, managing appetizers. One of Serena's friends laughed and said, "You two look so different." Serena smiled and called me her little helper. Organized, not beautiful, not important. As I walked toward the kitchen, I glanced back. Serena was texting under the table, smiling to herself. I didn't know it yet, but the unraveling had already begun. That smile stayed with me. the kind that had nothing to do with seating charts or flower arrangements. I recognized it instantly. I'd worn it myself once, back when every message from Daniel felt like oxygen. But Brandon was across town at his bachelor party, so who exactly was making the bride glow like that? I told myself I was imagining things. I was tired, bitter, oversensitive. Still, I didn't sleep that night. 3 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number, I almost ignored it. Is this Milo West? The voice was controlled, male, edged with something tight underneath. Who's asking? Marcus Reed, Brandon's best man. We met briefly at the engagement party. I remembered him vaguely, tall, observant, the kind of man who watched rooms instead of blending into them. Brandon had once mentioned he was a journalist. We need to talk, Marcus said. About Brandon. I barely know Brandon. That's the problem, he replied. Neither does he. The words landed heavy. Can we meet? He asked. Somewhere private. There's something you need to know about your sister. My stomach dropped. Every instinct screamed at me to stay out of it, to protect myself, to keep pretending ignorance was safer. But that smile came back to me. Tomorrow, I said. Coffee shop on 5th and Main, 3 o'clock. He hung up before I could reconsider. Daniel found me 20 minutes later, staring at my phone like it might explode. When I told him, his face tightened. He told me I didn't have to get involved. He was right. But something in me, the part that had spent 29 years swallowing truth, wanted answers. Marcus was already there when I arrived, hunched over black coffee like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Up close, he looked exhausted. Brandon is my brother in every way that counts, he said without wasting time. And he's marrying a lie. Then he said the name, Tyler. He told me what he'd seen, late nights, secret meetings, Serena leaving Tyler's building after 2 in the morning. I wanted to deny it, wanted to argue. Instead, I thought of the hidden phone at the shower, the look they'd shared across the room. Why tell me? I asked. Because Brandon won't listen, and because you might have noticed something too. I didn't confirm it. I didn't deny it. That was enough. The rehearsal dinner came a week later. Old restaurant, old money. I sat forgotten at the end of the table while crystal glasses clinked. That's when I saw Robert Hayes, camera in hand, standing apart. He showed me his photos, smiles, toasts, perfection. Then his finger paused. His jaw tightened. Some moments shouldn't be captured, he muttered, clicking past the image too fast. But I'd seen enough. 2 figures. Too close. Hidden in shadow. That night, Marcus messaged me. Robert had seen something. Proof was coming. A week before the wedding, Marcus called again. I have everything, he said. Video. Messages. Months of them. My hands shook. He told me how he got them. Tyler's ex-girlfriend. Screenshots. Evidence that couldn't be explained away. Do you want me to stop this? He asked. I can tell Brandon tonight. I closed my eyes and pictured the fallout. My parents. Serena. The blame that would land squarely on me. No, I said. I can't be the one who destroys this. Marcus was quiet. Then he said, I won't let him marry her. Do what you have to, I replied. Just leave me out of it. The wedding arrived 7 days later. Gray sky, heavy air, Westfield Estate gleaming like it was built for spectacle, 300 guests. I came alone. Daniel wasn't invited. Limited space, Serena had said. I found my seat at the back, almost against the wall. $2.99 out of 300. Marcus stood at the front, calm in a way that terrified me. Tyler stood nearby, sweating, smiling too hard. He knew something was wrong. He just didn't know how bad. The music swelled. Serena appeared in $15,000 of lace, radiant, flawless, every inch my parents' dream. My mother cried. My father beamed. At the altar, Brandon looked at her like she was the safest place in the world. He spoke his vows, honest, faithful. The words echoed through the room like a lie waiting to be exposed. And as Serena repeated them without hesitation, I knew the performance was almost over. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Applause detonated across the ballroom. 300 people celebrating a lie. I clapped too because there was nothing else I could do. As Serena and Brandon turned back up the aisle, smiling for cameras, I caught Tyler's face, white, slick with sweat beneath his tailored suit. He felt it coming. We all did. We just didn't know how close the explosion was. The reception glittered like a dream built to impress. White roses, candlelight, crystal throwing soft prisms over the dance floor as Serena and Brandon swayed through their first dance. I sat near the back with strangers who never learned my name. Then my mother took the microphone. I want to say a few words about my beautiful daughter, she said, stepping into the light she loved. Serena had been her pride from the moment she was born, destined for greatness. The room murmured approval. My father glowed, and then, casually, almost as an afterthought, she scanned the room. My other daughter is here somewhere. Mila, wave from wherever you are. Faces turned. A few people laughed when they couldn't find me. I didn't wave. She's shy, my mother chuckled, dismissing me again. To the bride and groom. Heat crawled up my neck. My other daughter. Not her son. Not her second child. Just the other one. At the head table, Marcus checked something beneath his napkin. A laptop case, a small USB drive in his hand. He met my eyes. It was time. And now, the MC announced, the best man. Marcus stood, adjusted his tie, and smiled. Not a friendly smile, the smile of someone about to collapse a carefully built illusion. He walked to the microphone with steady steps. He started warmly. College memories, loyalty, Brandon's kindness. Laughter rolled through the room. Brandon raised his glass, smiling. Then Marcus's tone shifted. Just enough. Brandon believes trust is the foundation of love, he said. That honesty matters, no matter how painful. Serena's hand froze around her water glass. That's why, Marcus continued, I believe he deserves the truth. Always. Nervous laughter, then silence. The quartet stopped. Waiters froze mid-step. I struggled with whether this was my place, Marcus said, voice carrying to every corner. But Brandon is my brother in every way that matters, and he deserves to know who he married. My mother's smile collapsed. My father's glass hovered in the air. Before I finish, Marcus said calmly, I think everyone should see what honesty looks like. The screen behind the head table flickered on. At first, it looked like a slideshow, photos of Serena and Brandon. Then the image sharpened. A corner of the Hayes estate garden, shadows, two figures pressed together, Serena, Tyler, kissing like it wasn't new, like it had history. Gasps tore through the room. A champagne flute shattered on the marble, the sound echoing too loud in the stunned quiet. What is this? Brandon whispered, his voice broken. The screen changed. Text messages, blown up large enough for everyone to read. Dates, months, words that left nothing to imagination. Turn it off! Serena screamed. Marcus didn't move. Brandon, he said softly, I'm sorry you had to see this, but I couldn't let you live a lie. Brandon stood slowly, hands shaking, eyes hollow. He faced Serena, his wife of less than an hour. Tell me it's fake, he whispered. Tell me anything. She couldn't speak. Chaos erupted. Brandon lunged for Tyler, tables overturned, flowers scattered. It took 3 men to hold him back, and even then his fist caught Tyler's jaw, sending him sprawling. My own brother, Brandon choked. Tyler begged. Serena sobbed, pleading for forgiveness, calling it a mistake. Brandon shoved past her like she didn't exist. 45 minutes, he laughed bitterly. 45 minutes and I already won an annulment. Guests fled. Phones came out. Mrs. Hayes collapsed into a chair, whispering no like it might undo reality. Tyler was dragged toward the exit, blood on his lip, not once looking back. Serena stood alone in $15,000 of lace, watching everything burn. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered every time she'd helped make me invisible. The feeling passed. I found my parents near the head table, frozen. My mother grabbed my arms. You knew, she whispered. You knew something. I suspected, I said calmly. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I asked. Or would I have just been the jealous other daughter? She had no answer. Behind us, Brandon walked out with Marcus and his parents. At the door, he turned back to the room. This wasn't the celebration any of us expected, he said evenly. It wasn't the one I expected either. Serena begged him to talk privately. He didn't look at her. My attorney will contact you Monday, he said. We'll begin annulment proceedings immediately. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing that she loved him. You don't know what love is, Brandon said, and walked out without looking back. Marcus paused at the doorway. Marcus found me once more in the chaos, gave me a final nod, and disappeared. The ballroom looked like the aftermath of a detonation. Rose petals crushed into the marble, chairs overturned, the wedding cake untouched, its tiny bride and groom frozen in a future that would never exist. Serena was still on her knees in the center of it all, surrounded by the wreckage of her own making. For the first time in my life, I had nothing to say to her. I picked up my bag and walked toward the exit, stepping over broken glass and scattered flowers. I was almost out when my mother rushed in front of me, panic sharp in her voice. Where are you going? You can't just leave. Yes, I can, I said quietly. But Serena needs to face the consequences of her choices, I cut in. I'm done. She grabbed my arm, desperate. You have to help us. You're her sister. I'm supposed to what? I turned fully toward her. Fix it? Clean it up? Be the organized one while she cries? My voice stayed calm, steady. You called me the other daughter tonight, in front of 300 people. You've spent my entire life treating me like a backup plan, and now you want my help. Her face crumpled. Milo, I love you. I love you too, I said. But I'm done being invisible. I gently removed her hand. When you're ready to have me as your son, not as Serena's helper, you know where to find me. I walked out before she could answer. Daniel was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against his car like he'd been there all night. How bad? He asked. Biblical, I said. He opened the door without another word. Halfway home, the tears came. Not for Serena, not for my parents, but for the kid who counted photo album pages and always came up short. For the man who finally stopped waiting to be seen. Daniel took my hand and didn't let go. In the days that followed, the fallout was ruthless. Videos spread everywhere. Marcus's speech, Serena's collapse. Tyler being dragged out bleeding. By Monday morning, Serena's influencer empire imploded. Hundreds of thousands of followers vanished. Sponsors fled. Her brand, built on trust, turned to ash. She lost the apartment Brandon paid for and had 72 hours to move out. My parents helped her pack designer clothes into their car and brought her back home, sobbing. Tyler was erased from the Hayes family. Job gone, support gone. Last I heard, he ran to Arizona under a new name. 2 weeks later, my mother called. Her voice was smaller, fragile. She apologized for trusting Serena, for not seeing who she really was. I listened, then asked the question she was avoiding. And me? Silence. When you're ready to apologize for how you treated me, I said, call me back. I hung up. Hours later, my father texted, I'm sorry for everything. It wasn't enough, but it was the first time. I stopped waiting after that. Daniel and I set a date. No estate, no spectacle, just a backyard, 30 people who actually loved us, and something real. Work followed suit. 3 months after the wedding disaster, I was promoted, earned, not gifted. A corner office, recognition without begging. Marcus stayed in touch. Brandon healed. The annulment went through clean. He was learning how to trust again. Marcus told me Brandon was grateful for letting the truth come out without warning. Sometimes doing nothing is exactly what's needed. 2 months later, Serena texted, Can we talk? I need my brother. I stared at the message. Daniel sat nearby, grading papers, quiet and safe. Part of me wanted to keep the peace I'd built. Another part remembered when we were just siblings. I agreed. Coffee, public place, no parents. She arrived looking nothing like the woman I'd grown up beside, smaller, stripped of polish, holding her cup like a lifeline. She apologized for the affair, for the mess. I listened, then asked, Are you sorry for cheating, or for how you treated me my entire life? She didn't have an answer, so I gave her mine. I'm not here to punish you, I said, but I won't be invisible anymore. If you want a relationship, it starts with respect, not comparisons, not convenience. She nodded through tears. We left it there, not healed, not broken, just honest. 3 months down, a lifetime ahead, and for the first time, it was mine. She sat there across from me, and I finally said what I'd been carrying since childhood. Mom spent our entire lives comparing us. You stood there while they praised you for being beautiful and acted like I barely existed. I never asked them to treat me that way, but you never stopped them either. The silence stretched between us. Then quietly, she admitted the truth. No, I didn't. 30 years of weight settled on the table between us. I told her I could forgive the affair. That was between her and Brandon. It wasn't my place. But what I couldn't erase was how she, Mom, and Dad made me feel my entire life. I wasn't ready to pretend it never happened. Her eyes filled with tears as she asked what I wanted from her. I told her the only thing I'd ever wanted, to be seen, truly seen, for once. She didn't know how to answer, and honestly, neither did I. A week before my wedding, I called my parents. Mom picked up quickly, her voice careful, hopeful, like someone afraid to breathe too loudly. I told her I was getting married, Saturday, 3 o'clock. Before she could speak, I told her it would be small. 30 people, Daniel's parents' backyard, silence again. Then I told her they were invited, both of them, but they needed to understand something first. If they came as my parents, not as Serena's parents who happened to have another child. Not as people who wished they'd invested in someone else, just my parents. Could they do that? More silence. I heard my father in the background asking what was going on. My mother told him I was getting married. There was movement, then his voice came closer. He said they'd be there, whatever I needed. I told him all I'd ever needed was for them to see me. His voice cracked when he said they did, that they always had, even if they'd failed to show it. Mom asked if they could bring a gift, stumbling over her words, admitting she hadn't been fair, saying she was trying to do better. I told her that was all I was asking, just try. When I hung up, Daniel was standing in the doorway, watching me. I told him they were coming, surprised by the smile on my own face. He asked how I felt. I thought about it, hopeful, scared, but mostly ready. He pulled me into his arms and told me I'd be a beautiful bride. I told him I was going to be a real one. He said that was better. The day Daniel and I got married, it poured. Not a gentle drizzle, real rain. The kind that turns grass into mud and forces everyone under a tired old tent 35 of us, packed together, and it was perfect. My suit was simple, my flowers were wild ones Daniel picked himself. The officiant was a family friend who kept losing his place and making us laugh. I was happier than I'd ever been. My parents sat in the second row. The first belonged to Daniel's parents, the people who welcomed me without conditions or comparisons, but mine were there. Mom cried through the whole ceremony. Dad kept clearing his throat, blinking like he was holding something back. For once, I think they were crying for me. Marcus came with Brandon beside him. Brandon looked lighter, like he'd finally put something heavy down. He hugged me before the ceremony and thanked me. When I asked why, he said, "For not being like her." Serena wasn't there. I hadn't invited her. We weren't ready. But she sent flowers and a card wishing me a real happily ever after. It wasn't forgiveness, but maybe it was a beginning. When Daniel and I said our vows, I didn't think about what the wedding wasn't. I thought about the people who stood in the rain because they loved us. When Daniel said he chose me, today and every day, I cried too hard to answer, but he understood. People sometimes ask if I hate my parents, if I hate Serena. The truth is more complicated than that. I spent nearly 3 decades waiting to be seen, waiting for approval that never came. What I learned is this: waiting for validation is a losing game. You can perform forever for an audience focused on someone else, or you can build your own stage. My relationship with my parents is still growing. We have dinner once a month. It's awkward sometimes, but they're trying, and for the first time, that's enough. Serena and I text occasionally, polite, careful. Maybe we'll never be close. Maybe that's okay. Here's what matters. Your worth isn't defined by who chooses you. Boundaries aren't selfish. They're survival. And sometimes the greatest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well. I was never invisible. They just chose not to look. Now I'm building a life with people who do. And that's worth more than any extravagant wedding ever could be.